Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I come to the floor today because I note that the Democrats being so eager to move to their reckless tax and spending spree. And it is something, Mr. President, I just have to tell you, I absolutely oppose. If we pass a bill of that magnitude, the American people will pay more in taxes, will pay more in the cost of living. It will continue to impact the American people in a very negative way. Right now, the Senate is debating a separate bill, an infrastructure bill, and in fact, the bills are not completely separate. It'd be nice if they were, but they're not. And the reason they're not separate, Mr. President, is because Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, has made it abundantly clear that any bipartisan infrastructure bill that is passed here in this Senate won't see the light of day in the House of Representatives unless and until, as she has said, the Senate also sends her a multi-trillion-dollar reckless tax and spending bill. According to one nonpartisan group, that bill could cost up to $5.5 trillion over the next 10 years. Now, Nancy Pelosi has said time and time again, there will not be one penny for roads, not one penny for bridges, not one penny for airports or ports until she gets the reckless tax and spending bill that she is demanding. It wasn't a negotiation, it was a hijacking. And Nancy Pelosi isn't just a hijacker, she is also an arsonist. What she is proposing is going to pour jet fuel on the fire of inflation that is currently ravaging the country. The flame was lit months ago when Democrats borrowed $2 trillion under the name of COVID relief. But just look at the economic projections before the bill became law. Some people failed to predict the inflation. The Federal Reserve failed to predict it. White House Budget Office said, oh, no, we won't get inflation. Congressional Budget Office said no. There were Democrat economists, though, that warned that it would happen. And Republicans pointed out clearly it was going to happen, and that's what has happened now. Democrats refused to listen. They borrowed and spent $2 trillion additional dollars, and inflation has gone up every month since. Core inflation is now the fastest and highest it's been in 40 years. Who are the victims of this? Well, there are people that are on fixed incomes. There are seniors. There are people working families trying to get by. Now it costs $25 more every time you fill up your vehicle with gasoline. Fill up a truck in Wyoming, it could be even more than that compared to the fill-ups of Inauguration Day. Go to the grocery store, now about $25 more for the weekly trip to the grocery store. So you're talking $25 extra a week in gas, $25 extra a week in groceries, $50 extra a week, $2,500 annually for a hardworking family in America because of what inflation Joe Biden and the Democrats have brought upon us. And of course, this kind of inflation slows our economic recovery. Just found out last week that economic growth is significantly below what economists had predicted it should be at this point. It does seem that Democrats still haven't learned basic economics. Now they want to make the same mistake all over again, even at a higher level. They want to borrow and spend trillions more. Last week we found out that the previous Democrat bill gave $800 million to prisoners behind bars. Now, Tom Cotton and I came to this floor. We tried to stop the Democrats from giving our taxpayer dollars to prisoners currently behind bars. Specifically warned it would happen as stimulus checks were sent out around the country. We tried to stop this as part of the Democrat spending yield, but all 50 Democrats, every one of them, supported direct checks to prisoners behind bars. The senior senator from Illinois came to the floor and gave a speech defending it. He implied it would be racist not to give free money to people behind bars. Every one of the 50 Democrats put $800 million of American taxpayer dollars on the credit card and sent checks to prisoners behind bars. This means more debt, more inflation for law-abiding citizens in exchange for money for criminals. It tells the American people that all we need to know about the priorities of the Democrat Party. Now Democrats want another round of payoffs. This payoff is even more expensive than the last one. Democrats are promising payoffs to all their favorite groups: climate activists, left-wing professors, trial lawyers, union bosses. This bill, this reckless tax and spending bill, includes one liberal priority after another. And even as we face the worst border crisis in the last 2 decades, Democrats are now promising amnesty and citizenship and voting rights for millions of illegal immigrants. Once they get amnesty, then they can get all the other Democrat payoffs as well. This is going to lead to an additional tidal wave of illegal immigration. And all of this has a price tag, and someone has to pay. Democrats do not tell nice stories. Republicans do the math. This bill is so expensive that Democrats will have to go after every working family in America in order to pay for it. One way or another, every working American will end up paying for this. There's not some rich person who's going to be able to pay for all of this. There aren't enough rich people on earth to pay for this level of spending. Democrats are going to go after the majority of the people in this country, and of course that is the middle class. That's exactly what they intend to do with this bill, because this bill is going to raise taxes on family farms and ranches. According to the accounting firm Ernst & Young, this bill, this spending bill that Nancy Pelosi is demanding go to the Senate, from the Senate to the House before any infrastructure bill is passed, that it would eliminate 80,000 jobs over 10 years. The bill would raise taxes on small businesses, which are already struggling to stay open because of the Democrat policies. Anyone who sells their home will pay thousands and thousands more in taxes. Now, this is also going to include a carbon import tax, which will drive up prices even higher. The bill would be a socialist takeover of our economy: more taxes, more spending, more debt, more government, eating into people's paychecks, eating into their savings. There's not a single Republican in the House or in the Senate who's going to support this reckless tax and spending spree. We need to stop this freight train to socialism. We don't have a taxing problem in this country, Mr. President. We have a spending problem. Inflation is already high enough. We know what the cause is. We know it's the cause of the excessive Democrat spending, and this is going to make it worse. Families across this country are struggling right now to make ends meet. Family businesses are struggling to stay open, and it is time to stop this reckless tax and spending spree. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.